Authenticity has become a hot leadership topic over the past decade. Today, we're going to look at what it's really about and why leaders struggle so much with it, drawing on an HBR article written by INSEAD professor Herminia Ibarra. Trust in the corporate world is incredibly low these days. Recent surveys show that in the majority of countries, fewer than 50% of people trust business to do the right thing. People have even less faith in management. Globally, only 18% believe business leaders are truthful. Employee engagement is also extremely low. A 2013 Gallup poll found that only 13% of employees worldwide are engaged at work. With public confidence and employee engagement so low, it's critical that executives come across as genuine and believable. That's why authenticity is now seen as a touchstone of effective leadership, and books and workshops that teach it to executives have become a big business. But there's a paradox. In certain situations, doing what feels natural to you can totally backfire. This is especially true as you move into new leadership roles and face new challenges. Consider what happened to George, an executive who worked for an auto parts company with a clear chain of command. When a firm with a flatter structure bought the company, George found himself in an environment where decision making was a freewheeling contest for the best ideas. To succeed, he needed to aggressively sell himself and his concepts, but that contradicted his belief in the importance of humility. George felt he had to choose between being a fake and being a failure. Though that feeling is common among executives, things actually aren't so black and white. You don't have to choose between being authentic and being successful if you have a more nuanced understanding of what authenticity is and what it isn't. Identities aren't fixed. People change as they learn and grow. So authenticity isn't about being rigid and unchanging, and it doesn't mean sticking with what feels comfortable, even though people often use it as an excuse for doing that. As we advance in our careers, we all have to move out of our comfort zones. Those transactions are a lot easier if you view yourself as a work in progress and allow your professional identity to evolve. Using trial and error, you can develop a personal style that adapts to new situations but still feels right to you. Your sense of self should guide you forward, not hold you back. In her research, Herminia Ibarra identified three situations where leaders tend to grapple with authenticity: taking charge of new roles, selling themselves, and handling negative feedback. Let's look at each in turn. First, new leadership roles. Everyone knows that the first 90 days in a job are crucial, but depending on personality, people respond quite differently to the increased visibility and pressure. Some people are chameleons. They adapt naturally to the demands of a new situation without feeling fake. They try on different styles, like new clothes. Because of their flexibility, chameleons often advance rapidly. The downside is that people sometimes think they're disingenuous. True to selfers are just the opposite. They often stick with comfortable behavior that prevents them from meeting new challenges. They also tend to express what they really think and feel, even when it's counter to the demands of the situation, and that can get them into trouble. Consider Cynthia, who was promoted to be general manager of a healthcare organization. The number of her direct reports suddenly rose tenfold, which made her feel a little shaky. Because she believed in transparency, she bared her soul, telling employees, I want this job, but it's scary and I need your help. But her people wanted a confident manager, and instead of building trust, her candor made people question her ability. Leaders like Cynthia need to find the right balance between authority and approachability. To be authoritative, you should value your own knowledge, experience, and expertise, and put some distance between you and your team. To be approachable, you should emphasize your relationships with people, their input, and their perspectives, and demonstrate empathy and warmth. Cynthia made herself too approachable and vulnerable, and it undermined employees' faith in her as a leader. Looking back years later in her transition, she shared this insight. Being authentic doesn't mean that you can be held up to the light and people can see right through you. Now let's look at the second area where leaders often struggle, selling themselves and their ideas. Inexperienced leaders, especially true to selfers, often find this distasteful. It feels artificial and political to them. This was the case for Anne, a senior manager at a transportation company. Even though Anne had doubled her unit's revenue, her boss didn't consider her an inspirational leader. Her detail orientation made him impatient, and he told her she needed to step up and do the vision thing. But Anne thought her work spoke for itself. Using storytelling and emotional messages seemed manipulative. It felt less authentic than relying on facts and figures. As a result, she always seemed at odds with her boss. If you're like Anne, a broader perspective can help you overcome your discomfort with selling people on your strengths. The bigger picture is that it's really about increasing your influence and your ability to bring value to your organization. In that light, it's a collective win, not a selfish pursuit. Now let's take a look at the third area where leaders often struggle, feedback. When we take on bigger roles and responsibilities, criticism often looms larger, partly because the stakes are higher. But sometimes leaders brush it away by convincing themselves that the flaws in their natural style are part of their secret sauce for effectiveness. A good example is Jacob, a food company production manager. In his 360 review, he got low marks for emotional intelligence, empowerment, and team building. His reports complained that he could be explosive. Jacob rationalized this to his boss as sometimes you have to be tough to get results, and people don't like it. Jacob thought his toughness was an asset, but when he took on greater responsibility, his poor treatment of others became a major issue. As these three problem areas show, many people find themselves fenced in by an overly rigid self concept. The key to breaking through is developing a more playful frame of mind. It's okay to experiment with new styles of interacting and ways of getting things done. In fact, you can think of leadership development as a process of trying on possible new selves. That's not being fake. That's figuring out what works for different challenges and circumstances. Here are some ways to get started. First, adopt many diverse role models. Most learning involves some form of imitation. While it might be weird to copy just one person wholesale, you can borrow selectively from a lot of people to create your own collage. As the playwright Wilter Misner said, copying one author is plagiarism, copying many is research. A study of investment bankers and consultants shows how well this approach can work. The study looked at people who were advancing from analytical project work to selling business and advising clients. Most of them felt insecure in their new roles. The true to selfers in the group stuck to demonstrating their technical expertise. They had a hard time adapting. But the chameleons in the group deliberately emulated successful senior people, borrowing their tactics for, say, breaking tension in meetings or shaping others' opinions. Essentially, they faked it till they figured out what worked for them. Their managers noticed their efforts and gave the chameleons more coaching as a result. Another thing that helps personal style evolve is setting goals for learning, not just for performance. Because performance goals make us worry about how we will appear to others, they inhibit us from taking on unfamiliar tasks. That hinders our growth. But learning goals motivates us to develop valued attributes. Consider one manager who was highly effective in small groups but had trouble conveying openness to new ideas in larger meetings. Afraid of getting derailed by comments, he often stuck rigidly to long winded presentations. Determined to develop a more relaxed style, he gave himself a no PowerPoint rule. He was surprised by how much he learned about the issue at hand after he did this. Here's one more way to break out of an old self concept. Most of us have personal narratives about defining moments that taught us important lessons. We allow these stories to guide us in new situations, but sometimes they become outdated. When that happens, it's time to revise your narrative. That was true for Maria, who saw herself as a mother hen. This self image emerged from a time when she had to make a lot of sacrifices to take care of her extended family. Though it worked for her as a team player, it wasn't getting her the leadership role she wanted. With the help of an executive coach, Maria focused on a different defining moment, a time when, as a young woman, she'd left her family to travel abroad for 18 months. Acting from this bolder sense of self, Maria asked for and got the promotion that had been eluding her. Your personal narrative must feel believable, but it will change over time, according to what you need to do. Embrace that change. Don't fight it. Your story should not only sum up your experience, but also reflect where you're headed. Being authentic doesn't mean never changing, and having a clear sense of who you are doesn't mean staying stuck in the past. To grow, you need to try things that make you uncomfortable but help you learn who you want to become. We're not talking about radical personality makeovers here. Growth can result from many small changes in the way you carry yourself, communicate, and interact. But when added up, these small changes can make a world of difference in how effective you lead. Here is a list of additional resources that will help you explore this topic even further. This list will be available for you as a separate document in this module.